Hello, welcome to Moist Nougat. I am the kid. Doing something a little different this week, and proved to be a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be because in my aging years, my memory is not quite what it used to be, and it's a little more difficult to pull memories. But what I wanted to do this week was favorite memories and things about family members. Now, of course, I'm not doing all family members. I decided that I would start out with my parents, and you know, I'll give my wife a plug here because my wife, Kyle, would want it that way, and that's one of the things that I love about her is that she tends to put people before her, and but yeah, like I said, coming up with memories, when you're trying to think of good memories, and some oddball memories pop up, and most of my oddball memories or bad memories or whatever are my own fault. It was whether it be my rebellious years as a teen or a night where I drank too much or whatever. But yeah, I wanted to start out with my parents, so I'm going to start out with my mom, and she's been on the podcast a few times, the Christmas episodes, and one of the memories I have of her, and it's not really a good memory, it's just a memory. I was out partying, and I don't know. I remember we were at somebody's house. We were partying, and my aunt and uncle, or my aunt anyway, showed up because my cousin was there. My cousin Tim and my cousin Wendy was probably there too. They didn't hide as well as I did. She drugged them out of there, and I stayed for a while and partied. I went home, and it was getting light. That's how late it was. And so I rode my bicycle home, hid my bike in the bushes, and went in the house. And when you walked it was an apartment, but they were kind of like townhouse. They had basements, a main floor, and then an upstairs. And my bedroom was in the basement. And when you walked in the door, the stairs were right there, and then the bathroom was usually right at the top, and then there was two bedrooms. Anyways, I go in the house, I'm going in as quiet as I can, and the shower's running, so I'm like, oh, she's in the shower, so I'm good. So I quietly walk through the house and go down the stairs, and I get in bed, and I'm think I'm golden, man. I'm totally golden. And the shower goes off, and, she's up there, whatever, getting ready. And I hear her come down the stairs, and they were wood floors and wood steps and stuff like that. So I heard her come down the stairs, and then I heard her walk across the living room and into the kitchen, and the basement door was there. And I'm like, she's just going into the kitchen. But then the basement door opened, and she just hollers down. She said, when I get home, we need to have a talk. And then she closed the door, and I heard her walk through and then go out the front door. And I'm like, how the hell did she know that I was home? I mean, she didn't go out and look and see my bike or anything. And unless, this is basically when I realized my mom was a witch. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that, like, she knew, like, I just don't know how she knew. She just knew. She knew that I was home, and unless the whole thing was she wasn't even in the shower. She was looking out the window and saw me ride up and hide my bike in the bushes, and I don't know. I never found out. But that is a memory I have of my mom. Um, Another memory is I was probably, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old, and I remember one day she took me to Eastview Mall, which was in Victor, New York, and just her and I. She took me shopping, and it was for me. It was like to get me some clothes, like an outfit kind of thing, not like school clothes shopping, like jeans and t-shirts. And she wanted me to get like an outfit, and so I was trying on a bunch of different stuff, and I don't know if she thought that I needed that or she needed that. I don't know. Um, but it was a pretty cool day. I ended up buying. I'm embarrassed to even tell you what I bought. I ended up. This is in the '80s, okay? Just so you know, it was like a white pair of pants, but they had zippers that went like down to the knees, and then they had zippers that came up to the knees, and they bloused out, and there was like red. They were white pants, and they were like this is back in the uh, you know early stages of break dancing and all that. I ended up buying like a checkerboard, black and white checkerboard shirt. I got like a fedora kind of hat. I mean, I felt good. I mean, it was a fun day, and like I said, I don't know if she needed it or she knew that I needed it. It was just one of those things that I remember to this day. A funny story was when we were out on the road with NASCAR doing our NASCAR crap. I was helping my parents drive probably out west when they needed a co-driver, and I hadn't been driving very long. Damn, allergies, freaking killing me this week. But we were in, I can't remember if it was Louisiana, Mississippi. It was somewhere down there, and before you get into Texas for sure. And a hellacious thunderstorm, and I was driving. Okay, Dana Lee was sitting in the passenger seat. My mom was in the back in the sleeper area. And it was a hellacious thunderstorm that we're driving through. I mean, it's just sheets of rain. You couldn't hardly even see. And I remember looking back, and my mom was in the sleeper. And if you don't know about big trucks, the sleepers have like a net that goes over you. So when you're like anytime you're in the sleeper, if the rig is moving, you're supposed to have this net over you so you don't go flying. It's basically like a full body seat belt. But I don't know if she was trying to be funny or if she was actually scared. But I just turned around and she had that. She was just laying flat and had that net over her, and because I was pretty nervous driving through that shit. It was a scary little thunderstorm that we were driving through, and that kind of lightened the mood for me a little bit, and we got through it. But that was hilarious that she did that. And like I said, I don't know if she was trying to be funny or she was actually she was probably a little bit of both, trying to be funny, but a little bit scared at the same time, especially since I was driving. Another thing about my mom is when she thinks something's really funny, she laughs like she means it. She's got the most hilarious laugh when she really gets laughing. I mean, it's the kind of laugh that makes everybody else laugh because she's laughing so hard. So it just kind of snowballs. It just turns into like a 10-minute laugh fest. But yeah, she laughs like she means it when she really finds something funny, and it's hilarious. And on the flip side of that coin, my wedding when Kyle and I got married, I I remember after the ceremony, because I didn't see her a whole lot before the ceremony and stuff. But when they're taking pictures and stuff like that, I just remember she had this look. I mean, she was about ready to bawl, and she just it's a wedding, and that's my mom. She's got a big heart, and it was hitting her in her heart, and I mean, she almost got me in tears. But yeah, I just remember her looking at me when we were getting ready to take pictures and stuff, and it was just a happy day for her, and it was fun. I wrote down she got choked up at my wedding. She was probably crying through the whole ceremony too. But I was, I was part of the show, so I didn't know what people were doing and how they were feeling about it. I'm drinking my Aldi wine. Feel like I'm rushing through these. It's been a day. It just has. I've had a lot going on and still doing the house thing, looking for houses and not finding anything except the one barn house, and I know that's off topic, so I won't go on and on about it. Out in Colorado, and like I said, it was so hard. I've been working on this for on and off. We've been looking at houses and crunching numbers and doing this and doing that. So I haven't had a ton of time to focus on it. But, like I don't have any, like most of the time that I spend with my mom are, they're good memories. But trying to just pick out memories. I mean, there's so many of them, and it's like, but which ones do you talk about? There's Christmases, and there's this, and there's that. But I do remember when we lived in Colorado when I was a kid, and we had a silver with red trim AMC Pacer. It was my grandparents had given it to my mom, I guess, or she bought it from them. I'm not really sure. But I remember driving around Woodland Park in that car, and my mom would be like cranking out the tunes, just cranking them out. And this was an 8-track, and we've talked about 8-tracks on the podcast before. If you don't know what an 8-track is, look it up. They'll probably come back in the next couple of years because cassettes are already back. So I don't know. 8-track would be the next thing, and reel to reel, and then those records that smash like glass, where you can, with the big horn thing, that'll all come back at some point in time. I don't know if I'll still be alive for it, but yeah, she used to, driving through Woodland Park, and she would have like, I specifically remember Chic, the band Chic. Actually, have some really good songs. Fleetwood Mac and I believe the Eagles. Those are bands that I specifically remember. Just having it cranked up, and I remember looking at her like, it's so loud. It's so loud. I got a little bit older, and then I realized that wasn't loud. If it's too loud, you're too old. I was just a little bit too young to realize that at that point in time. But yeah, a lot of good memories from Colorado, living in the little house on Pine Street, and driving around in the Pacer, and Mount Baldy, and going on picnics and camping and stuff. A lot of good memories. There was another afternoon, and I'm sorry to my sister because I can't remember if she was with us or not. I feel like she had to be because I don't know where else she would have been. But we lived in Canandaigua, New York, and there was a little amusement park, Roseland Park. And used to go there quite a bit when I was a kid. And I just remember one afternoon, my mom just said, "Hey, let's go. And it's like, where are we going? Where are we going? And I remember she took me or us. Like I said, I just can't remember if my sister was there. I don't remember a ton of specifics about the day, but I remember we didn't go in and ride rides, but they had a big game room, like a whole building that was just game room. They had skee ball and video games and, the funny mirrors and all that. And I remember going there and spending the whole afternoon just, doing all that stuff. And it was just awesome. And like I said, I don't know if it was something that she needed or, pardon me, if she said the kids need this. I need to get the kids out of here and go do something. And, but yeah, it was just a fond memory. I feel like I've rushed through. Like I thought I could stretch these out a little bit more and go into more detail, but the last thing I wrote down for my mom, and I'm sure like there'll be 100 more memories that come up in like an hour. She back in our racing days, when I moved inside and I was working inside, they opened up a call center upstairs, and she actually went to work up there. And so she was working in the same building. And I remember, I don't know how old I was, but I remember it was my birthday, and I came in, and my cubicle was completely decked out. Just balloons and crepe paper and streamers and the whole 9 yards. Like my mom had gotten there early and decorated my whole cubicle for my birthday. And my birthday falls 5 days after Christmas, so my birthday typically isn't that big of a deal because it's the night before New Year's and it's just a few days after Christmas. So it's kind of like in an odd spot. People are hungover from Christmas and trying to just get it on for one more night for New Year's, and so the night before New Year's is kind of like, now chill night. We're not doing anything. So that was kind of a big deal to walk in and have my entire cubicle just decorated. Not something that's happened a lot in my life. Had a, like a big birthday kind of celebration like that. So that's a small slice of memories and things that my favorite memories and things about my mom. And like I said, it's like the list is endless. And if I sat down and spent a month jotting things down, the list would be so long that I wouldn't be able to do a podcast about it. So I had to break it down to just some fond memories. So now let's get into Dad, or Dan Lee, as you all know him. One of my first memories was getting my first pair of drumsticks from Dan Lee. And before that, I don't know, I was using wooden spoons and boxes and pillows and pots and pans and stuff like that to just hammer out. I guess I was into drumming pretty early on, and my mom met Dan Lee, and he was playing in a band, and I think when he heard me hitting the pots and pans and stuff like that, he said, I need to give this kid a actual set of drumsticks, because the wooden spoons only get you so far. And then, of course, after he gave me the sticks, he got me a pad, and then down the line, he got me an actual drum kit, or put me together a drum kit. He had an old set of Rogers. It was a bass drum, mounted tom, and a floor tom, I think, and put together my first drum kit. And off I went. And I think that has always been the common denominator with Dan Lee and I, as we were both drummers and into music and stuff like that. So, and obviously, doing the podcast, if I had the time, I was going to go back and find some of my favorite memories from the podcast, or doing a video or something like that. But really, it's just all my favorite, just spending the time together and doing the podcast. And that's, he called in last week. Well, last week was just a few days ago, technically, but like, he still enjoys doing it, and it's not the same as having him, here in the studio, but it's still, something that we enjoy doing together, and we do. Another thing, and a lot of the stuff with Nana Lee, or Dad, is drums or band or music related. But I remember when my mom met him, he was gigging, touring around. Back then, you could do the hotel circuit, and I think Dana Lee and I talked about the hotel circuit and all that. It's not such a big thing now, but it was back then. And the Ramada Inn in Bath, I remember going. I can't remember how old I was, 9, 10 years old, to be able to go to like a bar and see like a band playing. Especially like when I was into drums, it was like awesome. It was like, and then being able to because they'd be there for like a week. So I remember they got rooms to stay in when they played there for the week and all that. So I remember like they'd play a set and run up to the room because the Lakers and Celtics were playing or whatever, and I'd get to go up and, it's just cool to be around. Like, these guys were, gods to me. It was like, this is what, they do. This is awesome, even though I was like 10 years old. But yeah, hanging out with a band, and I remember, like one day we went out and flew kites and stuff like that, because they didn't start playing until like 9 o'clock or whatever. And so they had all day to go fuck off. And, so you get bored, you figure out like, oh, there's this place called Mossy Bank or whatever. Let's go fly kites. Let's go buy some kites somewhere and go up to this Mossy Bank Park and fly kites. And I remember doing that. And also, I remember when we, when Mom and Dana Lee were an item, we ended up moving. I wasn't real happy about that because I was moving away from my grandparents, but so I was a little pissed off at the time for a little while, but once we settled in Canandaigua and stuff, I remember Dana Lee taking me to Red Wing games all the time, and I remember him getting a foul ball one night at one of the games. That was totally awesome. It had bounced off a seat or something, but he ended up getting there and getting it and gave it to me. And I still have the baseball somewhere. I just don't know exactly where it is. That is a huge memory. But yeah, we went to a lot of Red Wings games. Not a lot. I mean, we went, as often as we could. We were at the longest game ever, like 32 innings. We didn't stay for the entire 32 innings, but we were at the game, and we stayed for some extra innings, but just not all of them. And history says it was 33 innings, but I'm pretty sure it was 32 innings. Maybe it was 33. I don't know. Another thing, and I had to ask my mom. I couldn't remember the name of the band that he was in, but I remember going. They were playing a gig at Keuka College, and I think it was his last gig with this band. I don't know if the band was breaking up because everybody was going off their own separate ways, or if he was leaving for, whatever reason. But I remember they made him do an off-the-cuff drum solo, during the show. And I was just, like, to this day, and I wish back then we didn't have ways of recording shit as easy as we do now, like your phone or whatever. But to this day, it's still like one of the coolest drum solos that I ever heard. And, I was young. I don't know how old I was, 13, 14, whatever. But he had his North drums back then. And so the drums themselves were cool. And I had seen him gig out with those drums a few other places. But yeah, that him doing that drum solo was just pretty cool for me. He also took me to my first concert, Hollander Stadium in Rochester. It was the Police, A Flock of Seagulls, and the Fix. And it was pretty cool for me. It was the first time I'd ever been, in that kind of atmosphere. And, people are smoking pot and this and that. I hadn't been around, we weren't, but I hadn't been in that environment up until that point. The actual rock and roll kind of atmosphere. And it was cool. It was definitely cool. Another thing was him trading in. He had like an octopad and a bass drum and maybe a tom or two. I can't remember, and some hardware and stuff like that. But he traded it all in to get me the huge monster Yamaha chrome double kit, because that was what Asylum was starting to blossom then, and I was still playing the hodgepodge, Rogers and timbales, and it was just a hodgepodge kit that I had at the time, and I made it work. But he was like, "No, it's time. I don't need this stuff. He passing the torch, basically." And so I remember going into McNeil's Music up in Cortland or wherever it was, and him trading that stuff in and getting the Yamahas for me. That was a pretty big deal. And which leads me into Asylum Rehearsal Studio. Dan Lee came up one time, and I can't remember what kit was set up. There was my kit and then another kit, and it was like a drum shedding. It was before, like, I don't know when I looked it up. I couldn't find out when, like, the drum shed or drum shedding became a thing. But I remember he and I, we were playing, doing a drum shed or whatever, and if I'm even using the word correctly, I don't know. But anyways, like, we were playing together, and then I'd, do some stuff, and then, we'd play back together, and then he'd do some stuff, and it was fun. And I remember my mom saying to me, she said to him, "So did you show him some stuff?" And he said, "Shit. He showed me some stuff." Almost getting choked up a little bit over that. That was a proud moment for me. And then, of course, the the day at the studio with Asylum, Dan Lee came with us. He drove the Ford Escort wagon. That was when Stevie, it was during a snowstorm, and Stevie spun out and went into the median and had to just jump in with everybody else. And but I mean the drums and the bass. Dan Lee and I talked about it before on the podcast. We didn't get a whole lot of studio time. The rest of it was just sitting around listening to everything else that was going on. But just being able to have that experience with Dan Lee, and then I remember driving home, and I think all of us our heads were just throbbing from we recorded 2 songs, and I think we listened to each song 278 times. But I remember we had it was maybe not the final mix tape, but I remember listening to it all the way back to going home on the way when we left. And it's like it almost hurt to listen to it, but you couldn't help it because you wanted to hear it, because it was the best thing that we'd ever done, up to that point. And so, yeah, that was a memory that I'll cherish forever, for sure. I wanted to say that this is kind of a them thing. The two of them together, they are the nicest and most genuine people that you could ever meet in your entire life. If they only had 2 nickels to rub together and you needed 2 nickels, they'd fucking give them to you. That's just the type of people they are. They'll do anything for anybody. They're just good people. And I know that they sacrificed a lot when we were growing up, my sister and I. And some of those sacrifices I remember, like Dan Lee selling his octopad and bass drum and stuff like that, to get me a new kit. That's a sacrifice. And I don't know how they did it, but there wasn't a Christmas or birthday that we went without. We never went without anything. We didn't grow up with a lot of money. They busted their asses. They worked hard. And but somehow, some way, they we always had food on the table, and we always had a roof over our head. And I know there was times where Dan Lee was working 3 jobs to pay the bills. I know some of the sacrifices they made, but there's probably a lot of sacrifices they made that I don't know about, and I probably never will know about. They always provided for us. Side note, a little funny story about them. When they first were starting to date, they got busted for trespassing in a state park that was closed. And I think they had a little fucking weed on them. I don't think they got busted for the weed. But, yeah. But I remember, taking us to the planetarium in Rochester. And, we didn't go on a lot of vacations, but I remember we went to Niagara Falls. They took us to Niagara Falls. I wanted a 10-speed. 10-speed. Remember 10 speeds when 10 speeds were the coolest fucking bikes? Probably not. But they were when I was a kid. When you outgrew your little BMX, whatever, dirt bike, you wanted the 10-speed, with the curved handlebars and all that. You wanted the 10-speed. And it had the gear shifters on both sides. And yeah. I didn't get it right away when I wanted it, but all of a sudden one day, all of a sudden there was a brand new 10-speed, and it's like, I don't know what they had to do to get it, and how many hours of overtime they had to put in to be able to afford it. The release party for Silence release party after we made the single. My parents were front row. I mean, Dana Lee was, helping carry shit in, and I mean, they were, they just have always been there. Really was trying not to get like choked up about this. I mean, like, I'm fortunate enough that they're both still here, even though they're in Florida, but I can still call them on the phone. I can still text them. And I know a lot of people are not in that position, so I'm lucky. But no, I I adore my parents. They are some of the best people you'll ever meet, and that's why I felt like I had to start with them in this little series that I'm going to do. And I'm not going to do it every week. It's not like next week it's going to be somebody else. But I'm going to pepper it every once in a while because I want to go through my entire family. But what I want my family to understand is that time is not infinite for people. So we need to spend more time together. We need to. I've had a thing in my head that I wanted to do, and I wanted to do it before my uncles passed, and other people aren't with us anymore. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't know. I mean, you just don't know how much time people have, and like, to just ignore, just to treat. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Treat it like it could be your last day, I guess, and that's kind of a cliche thing. And I know none of us necessarily do that. And I mean, maybe somebody that's been through cancer treatment and stuff like that, maybe they actually do treat every day like it could be their last because they've seen how close they got to the end. And but I'm just saying, how many Christmases do we have left? Who knows? So like next Christmas, let's fucking do it up, man. Let's all get together for a goddamn Christmas, and everybody just put all of it aside. And it doesn't have to be perfect the way you want it. The point of it is everybody being together and spending time together. I don't know. Maybe it's more important to me than it is to other people. I don't know. But I don't know. I guess when you get a little bit older, you start realizing your mortality, I guess. And you're just like, man, I don't know how many years I have left. I don't know how many years my parents have left. I don't know how many years my sister has left. Or you don't, even if you're not old, you don't know how many years you have left because you just don't freaking know. So, you just can't waste it. But I'm going on and on about it, and it's starting to get depressing. So I'm going to call this one an episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you do. And we'll catch you next time.